Have you ever had a physical or emotional affair on your husband?
I've definitely had an emotional connection with someone outside of my husband, and we had to deal with it.
It's time that we grow the up. We make a decision. Either we're gonna be together or we're not gonna.
Don't block me. Don't
right.
block me.
Do right.
Don't take off your ring.
Listen.
Stop doing dumb.
Listen, do right, I won't unblock you. Do right, the ring won't come off.
Just stop.
You think having an emotional affair, which Yandy has now admitted to, is cheating?
Absolutely. That's worse than having a physical affair. You can't be emotionally getting attached.
It started with one question, a question so direct, so raw, that it made even the most seasoned reality TV fans freeze in disbelief. Cameras caught the moment Yandy sat there, eyes flickering between hesitation and defiance before admitting something no one expected. She had formed an emotional connection with someone outside her marriage. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavier than any physical betrayal could ever feel. Across from her, Mendeecees didn't flinch. His voice was steady, but the weight behind it was unmissable as he said it was worse than cheating. That one, exchanged just seconds long, has now exploded into a storm of whispers, accusations, speculation, with fans dissecting every glance, every pause, every choice of word. Was this a simple confession, or the start of a deeper unraveling that no one saw coming? Social media is already on fire, and the story is just getting started. When the footage dropped, it wasn't just another love and hip-hop clip. It felt like a crack in the foundation of one of reality TV's most watched couples. Yandy sat there, her voice calm, but her eyes telling a stormier story. As she admitted that she had shared an emotional connection with someone who wasn't her husband, it wasn't flirty banter or casual friendship. She described it as something deep, a bond that had pushed her to confront truths she hadn't wanted to face. Mendeecees, sitting across from her, didn't shout, didn't slam his hand down. Instead, he leaned in, his tone firm as he said that, to him, this was worse than cheating. The quiet way he said it hit harder than any loud outburst could. The moment spread online faster than wildfire. Fans were replaying the clip, breaking down her tone, his body language, the way she shifted in her seat before answering. Comments poured in, some saying it was refreshing to see her honesty, others accusing her of disrespecting her marriage. Bloggers jumped in, spinning theories about who this someone could be. The mystery of that unnamed person instantly became the hottest topic. And with every repost, the speculation grew louder. Friends close to the couple, at least those willing to speak off the record, hinted that the situation had been brewing for months. One source claimed that Mendeecees had noticed subtle changes, late-night phone calls Yandy brushed off as work, inside jokes with a man he didn't know well, and a certain guardedness when he asked innocent questions. According to them, these signs weren't ignored, but each time he confronted her, she'd assure him it was nothing more than casual conversation. But somewhere along the line, casual had turned into connection. In the episode's rawest moments, Mendeecees spoke about respect, saying he valued it even more than love. He told her you can't be emotionally attached to other men. That's not how you're supposed to operate in a marriage. His words didn't come across as cold or cruel. They were deliberate, almost like a man trying to set a boundary without burning the bridge. But for viewers, that boundary was already scorched. The idea that emotional infidelity could be worse than physical set off debates everywhere. Yandy, why? For her part, didn't seem to backpedal. She admitted they had dealt with it privately before, but now it was out in the open. She even said she understood why he felt the way he did, though she didn't quite agree that it was worse than physical betrayal. That difference in perspective created a visible tension between them, and in that tension, fans found endless room to speculate. Was this the first time she had been emotionally involved with someone else? Was this connection still ongoing? And why talk about it on camera now? The most shocking twist was how quickly the conversation turned to their children. Mendeecees pointed out that whatever was happening between them wasn't just about the two of them. It was affecting their family. "We hurting these kids," he said, a line that resonated far beyond reality TV drama. It painted a picture of a couple aware of their own flaws, but struggling to put the brakes on a downward spiral. And just when it felt like they might steer the conversation back toward healing, Yandy's expression shifted, like she was holding back something bigger. Something she wasn't ready to say in front of the cameras. That look alone had fans, convinced that this wasn't the whole story. The blogs latched onto it instantly, circulating zoomed-in screenshots of her face in that exact moment. Captions read, "What is she hiding? Hey." And the look says it all. Some commenters were convinced the emotional affair was only the surface of a much deeper rift. Others speculated that Mendeecees already knew more than he was letting on, and that his calm demeanor was actually the restraint of a man with more receipts than he wanted to reveal just yet. Meanwhile, social media wasn't the only place buzzing. Sources claim that people in their inner circle had started to pick sides. Mutual friends reportedly found themselves avoiding certain gatherings to keep from getting caught in the crossfire. A family member allegedly told a blogger that they were tired of the back and forth and wished both of them would stop airing things out on camera. But in reality TV, the cameras don't just capture the drama, they amplify it. Every clipped sentence, every loaded pause gets replayed, dissected, and turned into a narrative. And in this case, the narrative was getting away from them. Fans weren't just talking about the emotional affair anymore. They were digging through old episodes, old interviews, even old Instagram posts, looking for signs they might have missed. A simple caption from months ago suddenly looked like a clue. A photo without a wedding ring became a statement. The couple's past ups and downs were being re-examined under this new light. And in the process, every minor disagreement from years ago was being reframed as a sign of what was to come. Yet, despite the chaos outside, the footage showed moments where they still seemed united. There were flashes of humor, of familiarity, of the kind of bond you can only build after years of weathering storms together. But those moments were brief, swallowed up by the heaviness of the topic. It was as if they both knew that no matter how much they smiled or laughed in between, this conversation had already shifted the ground beneath them, just when it seemed like the scene might wrap up. Mendeecees leaned back, looking at her in a way that was both protective and pained. "Regardless of what he said quietly, you always gonna be my family. Nothing's gonna change that." It was a line that sounded like love, but also like finality, as if he was preparing himself for an outcome that neither of them wanted to say out loud just yet. And that's when the silence between them said more than any confession could. The silence that followed that moment wasn't just awkward. It was thick enough to make anyone watching hold their breath. Cameras kept rolling, but neither of them spoke for a few beats, as if both were calculating what to say next without tipping the balance any further. When Yandy finally broke the stillness, her voice was softer, almost hesitant. She told him she never intended for things to reach this point, that she thought she was protecting their relationship by not talking about it sooner. To her, it was just a moment in time that got out of hand. But to Mendeecees, it was a seed that had already rooted itself in the cracks of their marriage. The reaction online to that admission was instant. Within hours, fan pages were posting split-screen images of her apology next to his stone-faced expression. Captions like, "Is he buying it?" and "Too little, too late" were everywhere. People were analyzing his micro-expressions, some insisting they saw a flash of hurt, others claiming they saw pure disappointment. One viral comment summed it up in a way that hit thousands of likes. "Sometimes the calmest person in the room is the one who's already decided they're done." Off camera, whispers started to feed into the narrative. A source allegedly close to the show claimed that the someone she was emotionally connected to wasn't just a random acquaintance. He was someone both of them had met at events. According to the source, there had been late-night text, exchanges, playlists shared back and forth, and even small inside jokes that Mendeecees once overheard. The source also claimed that when he first confronted her, she dismissed it as just friendship. But now, hearing her call it an emotional connection on camera was like reopening an old wound in front of millions. And it wasn't just the alleged emotional affair sparking drama. It was the way their conversation exposed deeper, older issues. Mendeecees brought up respect again, repeating how important it was to him. But this time, he added something that made fans lean in. "I take respect over love because love can fade. Respect keeps you from doing the things that break us." The comment divided viewers. Some agreed, saying respect is the foundation, while others argued love should come first. In the middle of this debate, Yandy looked almost frustrated, telling him, "If I love you, I'm gonna respect you as..." If she couldn't understand why the two needed to be separated in his mind, the energy in the room was tense, but there was another layer to it, a sort of exhaustion. It was the kind of tired you get when the same fight has been happening in different forms for years. Both of them hinted at struggles they'd been through before his time away, the relocation, and now the public's relentless focus on their every move. "In one moment," Yandy said, "we didn't try to sell this as we the perfect couple. We've been fighting to stay together." It was a rare acknowledgement that, despite their TV persona, the battle to maintain their marriage had been ongoing long before this. Fans couldn't help but point out the irony. For years, they had been one of the most admired couples in the reality TV space. They had faced legal troubles, long-distance challenges, and rumors, and had still managed to present a united front. Now, with one confession, the cracks were no longer something they could control the narrative around. And the timing of it, all airing in a season where drama was already high, only made people question whether this was strategic storytelling or a genuine unraveling. In the days after the episode aired, the social media landscape turned into a battlefield. Hashtags supporting Mendeecees trended alongside hashtags defending Yandy. Some fans praised her vulnerability, saying emotional affairs happen more often than people admit, while others accused her of betraying his trust in the worst possible way. Meanwhile, rumors began swirling that producers had more footage that hadn't aired yet, footage that might shed light on the depth of her connection with this other man behind the scenes. Insiders claimed the fallout was spilling over into their work commitments. Apparently, joint appearances they had booked were suddenly being questioned. One promoter allegedly backed out of an event, saying they didn't want to feed into the scandal. For a couple that had built a brand on their partnership, the ripple effects of this on-air moment were becoming costly. And yet, even in the middle of this chaos, there were sightings of them together, not smiling, not affectionate, but together. It was enough to keep fans guessing about whether they were headed toward repair or collapse. What made this situation even more gripping was the emotional contrast between them. Mendeecees remained measured, speaking in short, clear sentences, while Yandy's emotions fluctuated. She would defend herself one moment and then soften the next, almost as if she was trying to pull him back emotionally without outright asking for forgiveness. In one particularly charged exchange, she told him, "I never wanted to hurt you." To which he replied, "But you knew it would." It wasn't shouted. It was quiet, steady, and devastating. As this played out, people in their inner circle began feeling the strain. Mutual friends reportedly stopped inviting them to group dinners to avoid being caught in the middle. One insider said it felt like everyone's waiting to see who they'll align with. Family members were said to be urging them to step away from the cameras and deal with things privately. But the problem with reality TV is that the storyline waits for no one. The show had captured this raw moment, and now it was part of their public narrative, whether they liked it or not. And then came the whispers about the so-called other man. Online detectives started combing through old photos and tagged posts, looking for any clue. A grainy picture of Yandy at a networking Events suddenly became evidence. A photo where Mendeecees wasn't by her side was dissected for hints. Even something as innocent as a song lyric she had posted months ago was interpreted as a coded message. The internet was building its own story. Each theory seemed to take on a life of its own. The most gripping part of all of this wasn't just the admission, it was the uncertainty. They hadn't said they were separating. They hadn't promised they were staying together. And that gray area left endless room for speculation. Every public appearance, every post, every ringless hand was being watched like a live countdown. And yet, as much as they seemed to be on different pages emotionally, there was still a thread between them, that unspoken tie that kept pulling them back into the same room. It's the same conversation over and over again. Just when the conversation seemed like it might soften, Mendeecees' tone shifted again. He leaned forward, his voice low but pointed, telling her, let's not put blood in the water. Once the sharks come, they don't leave. It was a metaphor that hit hard for anyone who understood how public scrutiny works. The moment you let the world see weakness, it becomes the only thing they want to feed on. And the way she looked at him then, not defensive, not angry, but almost worried, suggested that maybe, just maybe, she knew the real fight hadn't even started yet. The room felt heavier than it had at any point before. The air wasn't just thick with tension, it was charged like the moment before a storm finally breaks. Yandy's eyes lingered on Mendeecees, searching for even the smallest crack in his resolve, but his expression stayed unreadable. She started to speak, her tone quieter this time, almost as though she feared her own words. She said she wanted to explain how it happened, that it wasn't something she went looking for. But the moment she mentioned late-night conversations, his jaw tightened. It was subtle, but it was enough to show the wound was still fresh. She told him that in those moments, she felt hurt in a way she hadn't in a long time. It wasn't about romance or physical attraction. She insisted it was about someone making her feel understood. But instead of softening him, that explanation seemed to harden him further. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and let out a slow exhale before asking, "And you couldn't come to me for that?" It wasn't loud, but it landed with the force of a shout. She didn't answer right away. And that silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. The internet was already replaying this exchange in loops, picking apart her body language, his tone, and the way she avoided eye contact in that moment. Some said it was proof she'd checked out of the marriage long before this came to light, while others argued that people seek connection outside a relationship only when they feel neglected inside it. The debates were heated, spilling from fan pages into mainstream gossip outlets, each one twisting the narrative to fit its audience. What the cameras didn't fully catch, but microphones did, was Mendeecees quietly telling her that emotional betrayal lingers in a way physical betrayal doesn't. He said, when it's in your heart and your mind, it stays. You can erase a night, but you can't erase feelings. It was the kind of statement that stuck with viewers long after the episode ended. Clips of that single sentence were being used in relationship podcasts, YouTube reaction videos, and even TikTok trends, all dissecting the meaning behind it. As the conversation dragged on, the tension shifted from accusation to something deeper, a kind of weary resignation. Yandy admitted she had thought about telling him months earlier, but decided against it because she didn't want to ruin what was good. That phrase made him shake his head with a dry laugh. Good for who? He asked, the words dripping with disbelief. She looked down at her hands, as though she didn't have an answer she could give without making things worse. Offset? The situation was spiraling into something much bigger than a marital dispute. Industry insiders began leaking whispers that this revelation could affect upcoming deals. One brand they had been negotiating with reportedly paused talks, saying they needed to assess public sentiment. And that public sentiment was shifting daily, swinging between sympathy and outrage depending on the latest clip, tweet, or behind-the-scenes rumor that surfaced. In the middle of this, Mutual acquaintances started speaking out, not directly, but in cryptic social media posts. One former castmate posted, "Loyalty is rare, protect it," while another wrote, "Sometimes people you love most are the ones who starve you emotionally." Neither named names, but the timing left little doubt about who they were referencing. It was like watching a digital wildfire, each vague post adding fuel to the flames. Meanwhile, Mendeecees was playing his own game of emotional chess. Instead of blowing up publicly, he kept his tone measured and his social media quiet. But that silence spoke volumes. Fans noticed he hadn't posted a picture with Yandy in weeks. Others noted he'd been seen at an event without his wedding. Ring paparazzi shots of him arriving at a charity gala alone only deepened the speculation. People started to wonder if this was his way of slowly creating distance. Not just emotionally, but publicly. Back in the conversation, Yandy's tone shifted again. She asked if he believed there was a way back from this, a way to rebuild what they had. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at her for what felt like an eternity before saying, "You can rebuild a house, but if the foundation's cracked, it's never the same." It was a sentence that hung in the air like smoke. She blinked rapidly as though trying to hold back tears, but refused to let them fall at the same time. There were whispers from production that the rawness of this scene had even caught them off guard. One crew member allegedly said it was the most real moment of the season, and that no one had expected the conversation to go where it did. The fact that the cameras were rolling meant it would inevitably become part of their public story. But there was talk that the unedited version was even more intense than what viewers saw. Then came the twist no one saw coming. The alleged identity of the man she had the emotional connection with started circulating online. A well-followed gossip blog posted a blurry photo of Yandy talking to someone at a private event, claiming he was the one. The blog didn't provide proof, but that didn't stop the internet from running wild with theories. Soon, people were digging into his social media, pulling up old posts, and matching timelines to Yandy's public appearances. The frenzy only deepened the divide among fans, and yet, through all this noise, there was still a strange kind of pull between them in that room. No matter how sharp their words got, neither stormed out, neither raised their voice beyond a certain point. It was as if both were tethered by something neither could fully walk away from: history, love, obligation, or maybe just the weight of everything they had built together. Yandy, for her part, tried to shift the conversation toward the Tages, toward the future. She said she didn't want this to be the end of their story, that they'd been through worse and come out stronger. But Mendeecees wasn't letting her package this into a simple redemption arc. He told her worse is different for everybody. For me, this might be worse. It was the kind of sentence that could either be a warning or a decision, and the uncertainty of which one it was made the moment even more loaded. Outside that room, reactions from their circle kept trickling in. Some friends reportedly urged them to step away from filming for a while and focus on counseling. Others thought airing it all out on camera was the only way to control the narrative. Before the internet wrote its own version entirely, the couple was caught between two worlds: the private one, where they were trying to figure out if they could recover, and the public one, where every misstep was magnified and dissected. And that's when Yandy made a move that surprised everyone in the room. She reached across the table, placed her hand over his, and said, "I'm still here because I want to be, not because I have to be." It was a raw admission, one that could be taken as a plea or a challenge, depending on who was listening. Mendeecees didn't pull his hand away, but he didn't return the gesture either. Instead, he stared at their joined hands like they were a puzzle he couldn't solve. The cameras caught that image perfectly, two hands touching, but with a gap of space between their fingers, like they were connected but not quite holding on. It was a visual metaphor that fans would screenshot, repost, and debate endlessly. Some saw hope in it, others saw the beginning of the end. But no matter how it was interpreted, one thing was clear. Whatever decision came next was going to change. Everything. The air between them felt fragile, like the slightest wrong word could shatter it completely. Mendeecees finally broke the silence with a calm but deliberate tone, telling Yandy that trust isn't something you can demand after breaking it. It's something you have to rebuild one brick at a time. And even then, some bricks never fit the same way again. His voice wasn't raised, but the weight of his words was undeniable. Yandy's eyes stayed locked on him, searching for any sign that he might be ready to forgive. But his expression remained steady, almost unreadable. She said she understood the pain she had caused, but she couldn't undo the past. What she could do, she insisted, was prove through her actions that she was committed to fixing this. She reminded him of the years they had spent together, the battles they had already faced, legal troubles, separations, public scrutiny, and how they had always come back to each other. Mendeecees listened without interrupting, but it was impossible to tell if her words were reaching him or simply bouncing off the wall he had built around himself. Outside the camera's view, producers were quietly exchanging glances. This wasn't just reality TV drama anymore. It had taken on the gravity of a genuine turning point in their relationship. Whispers circulated among the crew that they were witnessing something that might never be resolved, at least not in front of the world. Still, the cameras kept rolling, capturing every subtle twitch, every pause, every unspoken sentence that hung in the air. Yandy leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper, and asked if he believed they could find a way back to each other. There was a long pause, the kind that feels like hours, even when it's only seconds. Finally, he said, "I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure out if I even want to." The sentence landed like a stone dropping into still water, sending ripples through the conversation. Her breath caught slightly, but she quickly composed herself, refusing to let him see how deeply it cut, while this tense exchange played out. The outside world was on fire with speculation. Blogs and gossip sites were pumping out headlines by the hour, some claiming to have exclusive sources close to the couple, others piecing together timelines and trying to determine if the alleged emotional affair overlapped with key moments in their public appearances. One particularly bold article claimed that the man at the center of the rumors had been spotted in the same city as Yandy during one of her business trips, sparking another round of online debates. Fans were split right down the middle. Some felt Mendeecees was being too harsh, arguing that emotional connections outside a marriage can be complicated and don't always mean the end. Others believed his reaction was justified, calling emotional betrayal the ultimate deal-breaker. Comment sections were flooded with passionate essays, personal stories, and heated back and forths. The drama wasn't just playing out between the couple, it had spilled into living rooms, group chats, and social media threads across the country. Back in the room, Mendeecees admitted that part of what hurt the most was not knowing the full truth. He said, "I feel like you're still holding something back. Like there's more you're not telling me." Yandy's face tightened, her gaze dropping for just a moment before she looked him straight in the eye and said, "There's nothing else, everything." But the way she said it left just enough ambiguity to make viewers wonder. If he was right to doubt her, the tension broke briefly when Yandy's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, and in that split second, Mendeecees' eyes followed the screen. It was impossible to tell if he saw the name or just the movement, but his expression shifted ever so slightly. "Who's that?" he asked, his tone low but loaded. She hesitated before answering, saying it was a friend checking in. But the hesitation was enough for the seed of suspicion to take root again as the conversation wound deeper. Mendeecees confessed that part of him wanted to just walk away now and save himself from the possibility of being hurt again. But another part, the part that had been with her through every trial and triumph, didn't want to let go so easily. Yandy latched onto that second part, urging him to focus on what they had built and what they could still build if they chose to fight for it. Their exchange was interrupted by a knock at the door. A producer stepped in, reminding them they had the option to take a break if things were getting too heavy. Neither of them moved. They both said they wanted to keep going, which only added to the intensity of the moment. It was as if both knew this conversation was a crossroads, and leaving it unfinished would only make the distance between them grow. Off camera, reports began surfacing that both had been seen separately, meeting with advisors, some personal friends, some professional. The implication was clear. They were both weighing their options, not just as partners, but as public figures whose personal lives were deeply intertwined with their brand. One insider claimed that Mendeecees had been approached with solo opportunities, while another suggested Yandy was considering a public statement to clear the air before rumors got further out of hand. As the hours wore on, their words became slower, softer, less about accusation and more about quiet reflection. Mendeecees admitted he didn't know what healing would look like, or if it was even possible, but he wasn't ready to make a decision tonight. Yandy said she was willing to wait as long as it took, but there was a flicker of fear in her eyes, the kind that comes when you realize time might not be on your side. By the time they stood to leave the room, the distance between them was still palpable. They walked out together, but not side by side, a few steps apart, like two people connected by history but divided by the present. The cameras followed them until they disappeared down the hallway, leaving viewers with more questions than answers. And somewhere in that uncertainty, the world watching could sense it. Whatever happened next wasn't going to be small, quiet, or easy. It was going to be a turning point that would ripple through not just their relationship, but the image they had built together over years in the public eye. And that right there is where everything stands. A relationship balanced on the edge, with one wrong move threatening to tip it all over. After years of standing together through storms, legal battles, and endless public scrutiny, Yandy and Mendeecees now face a challenge that can't be fixed by just smiling for the cameras. The emotional affair confession has left cracks in their foundation, and the world is watching to see if those cracks can be sealed, or if the whole structure will finally give way. Fans are already taking sides. Some say love will win. Others believe the trust is gone forever. Friends close to the couple are keeping their lips sealed, but the silence only fuels the fire. Social media is a battlefield right now, with every post, like, and comment being dissected like a hidden clue in a mystery novel. And here's the real question: where do you stand? Do you believe emotional betrayal is worse than physical cheating? Can a relationship truly recover once the heart has been given to someone else, even just for a moment? Or is this the beginning of the end for one of reality TV's most talked about couples? Tell me what you think down in the comments. Your opinion matters, and trust me, we read every single one. Don't forget to hit that like button if you want the full story as it unfolds. Subscribe so you never miss the next twist in this saga. And turn on that notification bell, because when the next piece of drama drops, you'll want to be the first to know this isn't just a story, it's a storm, and we're right in the middle of it together.